where you're going to want to start paying off that debt, because the one way to build wealth is through investing and compounding interest. Another way to destroy your wealth is through compounding interest from debt. So the same way where you can invest in yourself and get compounding interest from the stock market, the credit card companies, the mortgage companies, also your car loans, all the banks are getting compounding interest every time you make a note payment to them. So some of it is going to your principal, and a lot of it is going to interest. So you end up paying far more than the original amount. When that's extra money that once you get those debt paid off, instead of paying interest into the banks, you can actually put money away and have the stock market pay interest to you. So that's the idea. Being able to pay off debt so that you can keep working towards your goal of being able to invest that money and put it into the stock market. So number 3, the next is to build your full emergency fund. And what the full emergency fund is, being able to save 3 to 6 months of living expenses for your financial stability, so your financial security. And so that's a common thing because you never know what happens. Life happens, things happen. And so if you're working and something happens, it's like if you're able to start saving 3 to 6 months, if you have 3 to 6 months, then that gives you enough time where you're not at a crunch, where you can be at ease to be able to get over whatever the hardship is. If you got laid off from your job, you have 3 to 6 months of savings to where you have time to actually look for another job. Or you may decide, I don't care about that job, I'm going to start a business. Whatever it is, you have that savings there that'll allow you that time and that opportunity to be able to kind of work on yourself and grow yourself. So 3 to 6 months. So once you've paid off all your debt, and we're going to go through I'm going to go through the steps of the easy way of how to start paying off all your debt. But once you've paid off all your debt, you want to build that 3 to 6 month emergency fund. Step 4 is investing about 15% for retirement. Step 5, of course, if you have younger children and their education is important for you, you want to be able to start saving for their education. And a familiar plan, some of you may have heard of it, is called the 529 plan. And this is just a savings plan that you can put money into for your small children, and it gains interest over the years. So by the time they reach 12th grade and they're ready to graduate, it's compound so much that they have a good nest egg for college. Or if not college, a good nest egg to step out and buy a home if that's what they want to do, get a trade if that's what they want to do. There's so many opportunities out there. With my sons, I never really pushed them to college. I pushed them to trades just because I went to college, and now I'm not even using the original college degree that I got. And so I pushed them to trades, and so that's what most of them have done. And like my oldest son, when he left, I taught another thing is teaching your kids at a young age. And so one of the things that I did as I paid off my debt and started to build my credit was with my sons, I started to add them to my credit cards. And so by the time, like my oldest, by the time he turned 17, he had over a 700 plus credit score, because I was sure to be really good with that credit card, to pay it off so that it wouldn't ruin his credit, because once you add them to your credit card as an authorized user, you have to be responsible because it could ruin their credit. So you have to be responsible with it, and that's what I did. I added them to a credit card. So by the time he was 17 years old, all of my kids, 700 credit score. By the time he turned, while he was working, by the time he turned 23, I helped him go to the steps so that he could become a homeowner. So he now owns his own home, and I taught him the responsibility. He doesn't have any kids, so I told him, you're going to get a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom, and you're going to rent out 2 of the rooms. So his renters pays his mortgage. And so that's the cycle. So teaching your kids at a young age and just getting their mindset about money and making sure that they're informed, and even reaching out to me because I love to educate the young kids also, just getting them in the right mindset of how to manage money and how important it is, because the younger, the better. Because once the older you get, you still can build wealth. There's never a late time to start. It just takes more. So when you're younger, they can go from doing $100 a month for multiple years, and by the time they get to retirement, they're millionaires. versus the older you start, you now have to probably dump in thousands of dollars a month so that by the time you retire, you're a millionaire. So the next is step 6, of course, is to pay off your home early. And that's always the later one because your mortgage is the larger expense. And they give you 30 years to pay your mortgage, sometimes 15 years, 30 years, depending on the type of mortgage you have. But the idea is once you've started to pay off debt and you're comfortable and you have that extra money, start to dump it into your mortgage principal so that you can get that paid off early and not give the bank a lot of your money. Because, of course, a $200,000 mortgage, we know over 30 years turns into $400,000 or $500,000. And you don't see most of it, the bank gets it. Number 7 is to build wealth and give generously. So you want to continue investing while blessing others through generous giving. And it's the way that it makes you feel when you're able to contribute to others and give up and give back. It's just a good feeling. And so that's just one of the things that once you build wealth that you do want to do. And so I'll go through each step and try to break them down. And then if anyone have any questions, we can do that. And I'm here for whatever questions you might have. If it's budgeting, finance, taxes, anything that I can advise or help or assist with, I'm here to do that. So of course, we talked about the $1,000 emergency fund. Having that starter emergency fund as your financial buffer, it prevents you from going deeper into debt, and it helps you when like one of those unexpected things come up. Your tire blow, you got to get a tire. I would say use your $1,000 for that if you needed to, and then just start to budget again so that you're able to save that $1,000 again for another emergency. Number 2, paying down debt. So one of the methods that Dave Ramsey used is called the debt snowball method. And what this is that you list your debts from smallest to largest, and you create a complete list of consumer debts, excluding the mortgage, and you just order them from the smallest debt to the largest. And you want to pay the minimum payments on each credit card, and then whatever credit card has the smallest, you want to pay the minimum plus a little bit extra. So you put that in your budget. You pay the minimum plus a little bit extra until that credit card is completely paid off. Once that credit card is completely paid off, you go to the next lowest balance, you pay the minimum plus what you were paying on the other credit card. So it's just a snowball effect. And as you go, you keep doing that. And once that one gets paid off, you go to the next one. Pay the minimum plus what you were paying on the other credit cards. And you continue to do that until you have all your credit cards paid off. And the snowball effect is important because psychologically, it's like a quick win. When you have that first small credit card and you're able to pay it off and you see that zero balance, it's a relief, and you can pat yourself on the back, and it's a small step. So rather trying to tackle all the debts or your largest debt or the one with the largest interest or just trying to figure out, it's easier just to start with the smallest debt and pay that one off. And then it just becomes more realistic. It just makes you feel like you can accomplish it better. It's a behavioral change because you focus on changing spending habits and building discipline rather than worrying about the complex part of how to pay the debt off. And then it's a simplified method, so it removes the complexity of comparing interest rates. It's just easier to say, I'll start with the smallest, pay the minimum plus extra if I have it, and then keep working your way until you have all of your credit cards paid off. So a lot of it I talked about. Yes, keep going. So right there, here's a good stopping point to start talking about like debt. If anyone has any questions specifically about debt or didn't understand as far as like the snowball effect or needed some more clarity on where to start as far as budgeting and paying off your debt. Any questions? Yes. The debt that's like if you have debt that was like into collections on your credit. So that one, there you would want to talk to a credit specialist. I do know a good credit specialist. I don't really do with the credit. All the debt that I'm talking about is like your active debt that you're currently paying on. Anything in collections with the credit specialist, there's a lot of different things that you can do with getting things off of your credit that a credit specialist would be able to help you with. And I'll be honest, a lot of it, if you do the research and you look for the right tools, you'll find a different information out there. But really, if you use like YouTube and you do the research, you probably could do it yourself. A credit specialist, of course, they're going to charge you for it, and so it's convenient to hire somebody to help you do it. But a lot of getting debt off of your credit, you can do yourself. Sometimes it's just a timing thing. It takes, if it's already on your credit, it may take 7 years to fall off to where you can start fresh. But I pretty much would say talk to a credit specialist about that, or either kind of take the time and do the research to do it yourself so you're not having to pay. Because one of the things with the credit specialist, and why I say I have someone that I could recommend, because there's so many people out there that will give you false hope. A lot of the time when you have things on your credit, one of the things that I notice people will do is charge you a lot of money up front, and they will initially dispute everything on your credit. And what happens, the first 30 days, your score might go up. But that's only because while the credit card companies are disputing those things, they have to kind of take it off. But they give them 30 days to verify it. So after the 30 days, they'll go through and they'll verify everything that was disputed. And if they do verify it, then it's just going to pop right back on your credit, and it's going to bring your score back down. So that's why I always say just find the right credit specialist, or either do the research to do the work yourself. That would be my suggestion. Another question? Yeah. And I literally cut it up. Yeah, and one thing you will see with your credit now sometimes, and don't get discouraged, when you stop using, once you pay a card down to a zero balance and you stop using it, the credit card companies may close the account, because now you're not a benefit to them. They're not making money off of you anymore because you're not using that card and it has a zero balance. And I'm okay with that, because at this point you're paying down all your debt. You're not giving all that interest to the credit card companies. So instead of paying the interest to them, you're now investing it in yourself. And I have methods to help you show how to invest it in yourself to where your money is making money for you. So the idea is to not need debt. The idea is to not need debt. Any other questions? I would say once you've put your budget, whatever you have, if you have any remaining after you've, like all of the utilities, all of your important bills, and then, like I said, whatever you put for your want, whatever you have remaining, put that extra amount on the credit card. Pay more than the minimum, because whenever you're paying more than the minimum, you're going to pay it down faster, because more of it is going to go towards the principal rather than the interest. So if you just have the one card, definitely, if you can, whenever you have that free money, put it on the credit card and pay more than the interest. And I would say do that. Once you have that, make sure you have that $1,000 for emergency fund. And then rather than putting any more money for savings, anything you have extra, pay that credit card off. Once you pay that credit card off, then start putting more money for savings to get to that 3 to 6 months of savings. Any other questions? Okay. I am in the process of becoming a financial advisor. So I actually just joined teams with Primerica. And so Primerica, of course, when you hear Primerica, you think insurance, but they actually offer financial advisory services. So I currently have, I have my life insurance producer's license, and then I'm in the process of getting my securities license so that I can become a financial advisor. but I do work under a mentor, like if that's something that you're interested in now, where they would actually sit with you. Because one of the things that they do is they help you find what's called your financial independence number, your FIN number, if you ever heard of that. And what your FIN number is just the amount of money that you would, whatever your goal is, because everybody's goal is different. So the FIN number is the amount of money that when you retire, that you say, okay, this is what I need monthly to be comfortable. And the goal for retirement, of course, is to work your way up to where you paid off your debt, children are probably going off or in school or probably graduated from school. So you don't really have a lot. So it's like, okay, how much would I like to bring in? Of course, I want to do some vacation. I want a vacation. I'm retired. What am I comfortable with each month? And then what we do is we take that monthly amount and we show you based off inflation over the years how much you would actually need at whatever your retirement goal is. So if you say you want to retire at 65, depending on your age now, we take your monthly goal, we adjust it for inflation, and we show you that this is the amount of money that you need to retire comfortably to reach your goal. And so from there, we then show you the steps that you need to take to reach that goal. And it's very attainable. Like with me, I'll be open and I'll be transparent. When I started my process, I was older, so I got to the point that once I started paying down my debt, it actually takes me $3,000 a month, where I'm investing $3,000 a month to reach my goal, and my goal is $2.9 million, and my age is 65. But I'm okay with that, because at 65, if I got $2.9 million sitting in the bank, I'll sacrifice that $3,000 a month right now. I never did. I think, and people will have mixed thoughts on that. For me, when I looked into consolidation, it gives you a lower monthly payment, so it kind of makes it easier. But sometimes the total interest and the number of years is a lot when you look at the whole number compared to the current debt you have now. You end up paying much, much more. The only benefit is that it just makes it seem better because it's just a lower amount that you're paying each month. But for me, it's like if I have to struggle right now and pay the higher amount to pay less, then that's what I'll do. Any other questions? All right, let's see where we are. So I pretty much went through all of the slides that I have that were pertaining to budget. And like I said, another topic I wanted to get on was like the financial independence number. And one of the things, just letting people know that it's doable. You just have to always do the things. If you really are consistent and determined to take those small steps and do the things and actually create your budget, you'll be surprised how you start to free up money and pay off debt, and then you start to invest in yourself rather than investing in the banks. Because it's easy to say, it's habitual to get credit cards and spend them and pay them off, but then when you look at the amount of interest that you paid, because that's what I started doing. I started tracking my personal finances and separating my principal from the interest, and then at the end of the year when I'm realizing I paid $7,000 in interest this year, I could have put that $7,000 in a Roth IRA account, mutual funds, and was getting compounding interest. But I actually gave it to the bank, and they put it in a mutual fund, and they're getting compounding interest off of my money, and I don't have nothing. So when you see it on paper and you see it in writing, it makes you really want to do it for yourself. Now my mindset is invest in me and not the bank. Any other topics besides finances y'all want to talk about? Y'all want to talk about taxes? Want to talk about taxes? Okay, where do we start? How many business owners we got in here? And everyone else is like 9 to 5, W-2. So I'll start with W-2. And so with W-2, a lot of the things that I see with W-2, if you end up owing taxes, is really just because you did not fill out your W-4s correctly. So the W-4s are important because, and I know many of you heard this story, carry 9, drop it half of the year. Drop it at 6 months. But that's a setup. So it really just depends. And I always tell my clients that it depends on your individual situation. So one person may have, say for instance, like with me being a young mom at the time, I had 4 kids. So I could choose to carry 4 or sometimes a little bit more depending on your income also. At that time, if I'm at that income phase where I'm going to get the earned income credit, plus I have my kids, then I can carry a little bit more and pay a little bit less in taxes, but my refund is going to be smaller. So it's just things that you have to take into account. You can't listen to everyone. You can't listen to say, oh, just carry 6 and then drop it, because what happens is you're not paying based on your income and how many kids you have, your filing status. If you're not paying enough taxes, then when you go to file your tax return, that's when they're going to get it on the back end. And if you don't pay, if you end up owing and you don't pay that amount that you owe in full, the IRS is going to charge you interest. So I say fill out the W-2s the accurate way, the W-4s, and now they're a little bit different. So they changed the W-4, and mainly on the W-4, I'll tell you the main thing you want to look for, filing status. Are you filing single, married filing separately, or head of household? And then the next thing they'll ask for the child tax credit. That's what when you go down to box 3, it says for the child tax credit, how many dependents do you have under 17? So it doesn't matter if you have over, because the child tax credit only applies to dependents under 17. So if you have 2 dependents under 17, you would put 2 on that line, and you could put at that time $4,000, because they're going to give you $2,000 for each child on the top child tax credit. Anything else that's on that W-4 is really irrelevant. So you put your filing status and how many dependents you have under 17. If you don't have any dependents under 17, you want to put 0. If you're married filing a joint return and you have 2 dependents, one person could either put 2 or each person put 1. And that's the way it works for the married filing joint. Because sometimes if both couples put 2, they're each getting $4,000 credit, which is $8,000. But when they file their joint return, they're only going to get a $4,000 credit. So that's the main thing with W-2s. If you are a high earner W-2, meaning 6 figures, and you're paying a lot of taxes, my recommendation would be to invest in real estate. Real estate is going to help you get some of that money that you pay to the IRS out of your W-2 back. And so it's good to, of course, you want to build your credit, because investing in real estate, you got to have that credit, especially if it's going to have a mortgage, unless you're paying cash. But what happens when you buy real estate, and when I say invest in real estate, invest in it and turn it into a business property. So either a long-term rental or a short-term rental. These days, short-term rentals, it works better just because there's less that you have to show the IRS when you have a short-term rental to be able to take deductions. But it can work both ways. But what I say with the real estate, when you have real estate, there's so many deductions that you can get by having real estate, because it's a business income, and it'll offset your W-2 income. And so whatever you paid in taxes out of your W-2, by the time you file that rental property, you're going to get a refund back. You're going to get it back. And so that's one of the things I do for my clients, that W-2, and they've probably paid $15,000 to the IRS out of their taxes. We come up with a real estate strategy, and they're usually able to at least get about $6,000 to $8,000 of that back at the end of the year. And when I say short-term is like Airbnb, and long-term is just your month-to-month renters. Next, what else we want to talk about? Business owners. So business owners have the flexibility of taking a lot of deductions. So when you're a business owner, the IRS favors you. And the reason is because they want you to continue to pour into the economy, possibly hire more people. It keeps the economy going. So they favor you. So when you're a business owner, you want to make sure that, of course, number one, accounting and bookkeeping is very important. You want to make sure that you're tracking all of your income and all of your expenses so that you can maximize and get all the deductions that you're supposed to get. There's so many deductions. There's 400 different IRS publications on business owners and deductions that you can take that will allow you to have favor and at least pay the minimum possible. I'll be honest, sometimes you can't always avoid taxes. It's just there, you gotta pay it. But the goal is to pay the least amount possible. And the wealthier you become, the less taxes you can start to pay, because then you can start to get more creative. Because the way that the IRS works is if you're spending, then you're gonna pay taxes. If you're investing, then you're not gonna pay taxes. So that's what the wealthy, that's what they do. They come up with all these strategies when they're able to take their money and actually invest it, whether it's into charitable organizations, into the stock market, wherever it is you can find to invest your money, then you're not going to pay tax. You're not going to pay as much taxes, or you're going to pay very little. And when I say charitable organizations, a lot of wealthy people will create their own charitable organizations called family foundations. And family foundations allows you to take the money that you earn and invest up to 33% of it in there. And then you can hire your children and everyone else and be able to filter that money off to them. And even as business owners, that's something that I try to do with my clients. Hire your children. Get them working in your business and start paying them, because then you can shift income to them. You can take it off of your tax return and give it to your kids. And of course, if it's less than, I would say the standard deduction is about $14,800 for the year, that's going to be a deduction to you, and the kids will not have to file taxes. And on the flip side, because they are earning income, they can open up a Roth account and start investing that money into a Roth at a young age. So by the time they get 20, 30, 40 years old, they have hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions, saved up. So there's a lot with finances, and I know today our main goal was to start with the budgeting, because the idea is, how do I get there? And it's always taking the baby steps. So I know it seems easier when you can, it seems like, okay, I need to wait until I have a lot of money and then I'll do it. But then you're just kind of pushing time. Time is running against you. So the idea is, do what you can now. Just work with what you have now and do that. Take the baby steps, and then 10, 15 years from now, you'll be surprised at how far you are. Yes, ma'am. So there is no age, because you have babies like the Gerber baby. The Gerber baby does advertisement, it makes money. But if it's like labor, like certain little tasks that they're going to do, it's recommended that they're about 7, to where they really can kind of comprehend what's going on, and you can give them little tasks that they can do and actually pay them for it. So then you just have to figure out what's a task that they can do. Usually when they're that age, a lot of it is marketing. So putting them on marketing materials. Some people, like you see babies on social media all the time. People you market with them. You use them for marketing. Like have them do little social media ads with you. Incorporate them into your social media ads and pay them for it. Any other questions? No? All right, okay. So so an IRA, Roth is an IRA also. So you have your traditional IRA and then your Roth IRA. Traditional IRAs are usually set up like when you're with an employer, and they're pre-tax. So they look at your gross income, they deduct whatever you're going to invest into a traditional IRA, and then whatever's remaining, that's what's going to be taxed. So the taxes are deferred with a traditional IRA. And what that means is, as long as you're investing, you're not paying taxes on that money. But when you retire and you start to pull that money out, at that time you will pay taxes on it. With the Roth IRA, you take money after you've already paid taxes on it and you invest into your Roth IRA. So then when you go to retire and it's time to pull money out, you will not pay taxes because you've already paid taxes. So the idea with that just depends on what bracket you think you're going to be in. If your plan is to be in a higher tax bracket when you retire, then you're going to want to invest in a Roth IRA. If your plan is to pay all your debt off now and be in a lower tax bracket because you're retired, so you just got your retirement income and not really any other income, then a traditional IRA is good. So there's several different brokerage companies, like Fidelity, Charles Schwab, any one of those companies you can go on and set it up. I recommend working with a financial advisor only because a financial advisor is going to know exactly where to put your money for you to make money. They're going to, yeah, because I've seen it, it works. And the thing about the financial advisors at Primerica, they don't charge you like a monthly fee. Their goal is to help you make as much money as possible because their commissions comes off of your gains. So whatever they're able to help you gain is how they get commissions. So there's no monthly fee to work with the financial advisor. Like I said, their goal is just to help you make as much as possible so that they can get the commissions. Yes. With them working, like with them, as far as them investing, paying them. So you don't want them to exceed, if you don't want them to have to file taxes, you don't want them to exceed the standard deduction, which changes each year. I believe for 2024 it was $14,850, and it's going to be higher for 2025. And so as long as, that goes for anyone. If you're working and the total amount you make is under the standard deduction, you're not required to file taxes. So you only have to file taxes when the money that you earn is equal to the standard deduction or greater. So the kids are not required to file taxes if it's at the standard deduction. If it's more than the standard deduction, then you can still shift income, but at that point they have to pay taxes. Talk to a financial advisor because the banks are paying you nothing on your money. That $50,000 may be getting 0.001%. You may see some interest every month, a small amount, versus if you talk to a financial advisor, it's likely they'll put it into a mutual fund. And with the mutual funds, it's different companies like Amazon, Microsoft, all the big companies that you know. It's those major companies, but you're buying into all of them. Instead of like just selecting a few, you're buying into a mutual fund, which consists of all of them. And so your money is going to grow faster.
Would it be a smart idea for you to invest in real estate?
Really,
That's my own money.
it could be. The real estate is always a great investment because over time real estate appreciates, and so it's always something that as the years go by you can take it and sell it. Real estate is not going to be as liquid as the stock market because it depends on what the real estate market is doing and if you're able to sell it at that time. Versus the stock market, you can always pull your money out at any time. So if you have your money tied in real estate, is really based upon, am I able to sell this property now or not? Versus the stock market, you can always pull it out.
If I invest in the stock market, then I can pull out.
So no, on the mutual, well, if you have gains, so if you have gains, then anything that you contributed from your pocket, like your original 50,000, and if you need to pull some of that out, you'll never pay taxes on it. If you have gains, the interest that you gain, then at that time you'll pull it out, but you'll pay taxes, but the taxes is capital gains, which is far lower than your regular taxes that you pay when you're earning income. Capital gains, the most that you would be taxed on capital gains is 20%, versus when you're working for an employer or ordinary income, you can get taxed as high as 37%. Yes. Yeah, and I definitely I recommend talking to a financial advisor, and it depends on what your goals are, but definitely probably a mutual fund over an annuity. Yeah, it does. So of course, anytime you're putting your money in the stock market, it has risk. So that's why you kind of want to set it and forget it, especially if you're going long term, or you can do both. You can do like a short term investment, which is usually recommended 3 to 5 years, where it's less riskier. And then you also want to have like your long-term investment, which is more riskier, but over the time, the stock market always drops, but it always comes up tenfold. So it may drop a threefold, and when it comes back up tenfold. So even though you may incur a little bit of losses, if you hold it out, those gains are going to outweigh all the losses always. So with the stock market, long term is just being patient. If you could qualify for the IBR, I would say do that one, because with the IBR, it's going to be the lowest amount on your student loan. And then what's going to happen, I believe, after about 25 years, then it's going to fall off. Yeah. The student loan for me is always the last one. I'm like, I'll die owing the student loans. Any other questions? So that one, I think it was depending on the profession that you're in. I know with like healthcare providers and depending on like assignments, I'm not all the way positive, but I know a lot of it was the profession that you're in, whether or not if you're working like away or abroad or helping people, then you work so long and then they would forgive the loan. But I don't know. I know at one time I heard that Biden was supposed to forgive so much of the student loans, but I don't think that ever happened. For the forgiveness? Yeah, yeah. Okay, so with the 7 years is for the credit debt. With the IRS debt is 10 years. And so what happens with the IRS debt, if you owe the IRS from the time it is assessed, and what that means is from the time you file your tax return and it's on record that you owe this money with the IRS, your 10-year clock starts. And so as long as if that debt is outstanding and it makes it to 10 years, then it would fall off. And so what happens is I always recommend have a payment plan for the debt, but pay the most recent. When you make the payments, make sure that it's being applied to the most recent. Because if you just make a payment, the IRS is automatically going to apply it to the older debt because they don't want it to reach that 10-year mark. And the closer it gets to that 10-year mark, they will probably start to send out very threatening letters. It really just depends on where you are. When I'm working with clients with resolution, I look at how threatening the letter is, how much assets do they have to determine whether I think the IRS would really come after the assets, and then kind of advise there. So every person's situation is going to be different. Of course, if you don't have a lot of assets and not a lot of money sitting in the bank, it's easier to get debt resolution. So that's another thing when working with debt resolution specialists. A lot of them will say, oh, fresh start, no forgiveness, Optima tax. We got people pennies on the dollar. It really just depends on the situation. So most people who are getting the penny on the dollar resolution is because they may have been making a lot of money previously and something happened that changed their income to where they're not making as much money and they just can't afford the IRS debt. They don't have a lot of assets, so they become insolvent to where they're on the negative, and we can say, okay, they're insolvent, so you'll never get this money anyways, and so the IRS is easier to forgive it. If they see that you're not insolvent, they're not going to be as easy to forgive it. The newer, yeah. On the new debt, pay towards the newer debt so that that one is coming down. The older one, the closer it gets to that 10-year mark, it'll start to fall off. Well, no, well, I would say, well, if they got you set up on a payment plan, and sometimes another thing about the 10-year statutory expiration, and they don't tell you this, they will persuade you to call in and make a payment arrangement on all of the debt. That kind of pushes that changes your expiration date. Whenever you set up an installment agreement, the 10 years now is delayed by how long it took for them. It's usually by like 31 days or it could be longer. So just because you filed the tax return on this date and it was old, you really have to kind of look at your transcripts to see when that 10 years is going to expire, because if events happen that's going to cause that 10 year to be delayed, then it may not be 10 years. It may end up being a whole another year, 11 years, so it depends. But definitely have a payment plan in place and make the payments as best as possible. But just pay the most recent rather than the older ones and hope that falls off. Or figure out some strategies. You my client, I got your back. We'll figure out some strategies to try to knock it out the way. Any other questions? Yes. So that's another thing where it's a personal, you have to talk to like a bankrupt attorney, because bankruptcy is not free. So it does cost money to file bankruptcy, and then it's going to hit your credit for so many years. It keeps you from doing a lot of things, even something as like life insurance. And that's one of the things I do recommend. I recommend everyone get life insurance. That's how the wealthy stay wealthy. You get life insurance, and the idea is to build wealth so that you won't need the life insurance. But if something was to happen to you prematurely, you want to have that life insurance in place so that all of your mortgage and whatever outstanding debt you have can be paid off, and then your beneficiaries can still have a lot of money to where they can move on. And when you do have that life insurance, just teaching them to be responsible, that they're able to take that money and be able to keep it going. But yeah, bankruptcy is like that individual, personal, where you talk to a bankrupt attorney and really see if it's worth it for you. Yes, ma'am. Mm-hmm. To pay. Yeah, credit specialists would be able to answer it, but on the tax side, settled debt is taxable. So when you have a canceled debt, they will send you a 1099-C form saying the amount of debt that was settled, and when you file your taxes, you have to pay taxes on it. Yep. Anything else? Okay. Well, debt is just any amount that you're paying the banks. So even if it's just $100, if you don't pay that 100, they're going to charge you interest. So you're going to end up paying $110. So the idea is anything that you're paying the bank that they're charging you interest for is debt. Because you don't want to give them the idea is not to give the bank your money. So if you have, like with me with the credit cards, if I use my credit card, I'm paying it off within 30 days so that they're not getting interest from me. No, you can. So you can flip flop between the years just depending on your situation at the time. And I usually look to see whether joint or separate would be best. So you can flip. You can flip between the two. Because that was for like for that moment. So like for 2025, if it's different when I look at it, I'll tell you that I think you guys should do separate. So it just depends. Yeah. But you know, I'll always look at it and say, yeah, I think you're going to benefit now to do joint versus separate, or to do separate versus joint. Yeah, and it can change year by year. So, so on the joint responsibility. So, and that's why I always look at it. So usually, if one spouse is going to have a liability, then I will say file separate. But if I see that you're going to get a refund, then I would say file joint. Yeah, and so of course, if you do file joint and you're going to get a refund, if one spouse has an outstanding liability, they will apply it to that spouse's liability, but then you're helping your spouse pay down the liability. And until you get to the point where it's paid, and then you can file joint and actually receive your refund. Yeah, so they have injured or innocent spouse relief. There are certain circumstances where they would approve it. They don't always approve it. So, like, say for instance, like innocent spouse, as far as like if you had like one spouse maybe had like a obligation prior to it's just certain circumstances. Just because you file it don't mean they always will approve it on a joint return. But you can always apply for it to see. But there are certain circumstances whether the IRS would say yes, they would give you the injured or in the innocent spouse relief. Mm-hmm. 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 Yeah, so my suggestion would hire you a professional daycare because they are going to have that EIN number, and anything that you pay her, she's going to file in her taxes. So the reason why the IRS is doing this is because when they don't have an EIN or they're not willing to give you their social, it's because they're not claiming what you pay them as income. And the IRS wants them to pay taxes on that amount of money that you're paying them. And so if they're not going to pay taxes, then you can't take the tax deduction. Oh, so but sometimes you could just Google the EIN number. Yeah, you already got it. Yeah, yeah. But yeah, I understand. It just it's one of those things where if they don't want to file it and claim the income to pay taxes, then you can't take the deduction. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, fill the W-4 out the right way. Okay. All right. I think, are we good for tonight?
I wanna ask a question,
Yes, sir.
but I got to make sense. I have to make sense.
Okay.
How many there, employees that almost half of the people? So we allow, now when we talk about generation wealth, accumulating wealth,
Mhm.
everybody that has a 401k, they invest their money
Mhm.
to start. But if you trust to invest your money into that, why can't we as a people come together and invest our own money,
Mhm.
be our own member,
And you can.
not to
Yep.
borrow.
Yeah.
So
Question.
therefore, why, what is it? How do we sacrifice? What do we do?
It's the education part. Yeah.
Is the education needed? Now, I didn't see some uneducated millionaire. So it cannot, to me, it cannot be the educated.
But usually they have,
It's a, to me, it's a trust and a faith.
and that too. Yes. Definitely that.
If it's trust and faith, it should be able to be done
Yeah.
with the people.
And it can be there. I mean, there's a way where you could build your own bank. You have enough money and enough resources and people coming together. You can build your own bank. People do that, and it's the idea of investing in yourself. But yeah, like you said, it is a big trust thing. And so I guess mainly feeling like you have the right people in place that you can, and that's why I am passionate about how I do things. I try to be as transparent as possible because I know I'm helping people with their finances. They're giving me all their important information. And I know that in this field, a lot of people are misled and taken advantage of. So I try to have my clients be hands-on and educate them about what I'm doing for them. I want them to see it and I want them to understand it so that it's not just me doing something and then later on, years down the line, it causes them problems because that happens. So definitely trust. Trust is the big one, being able to trust each other. And education, being able to know or being able to have somebody that does know. So yeah, it's a lot.
You work for companies and they offer 401k. Is it not wise to invest, especially if they match?
Yes, it is. So if you work for an employer that has a 401k, absolutely, if they are matching you, that's the best thing to do. Yeah, but also that doesn't stop you from having your own Roth also. So you still can open up a Roth and still invest in the Roth and the mutual funds on your own with the money that you've already paid taxes. And when you do pull that, you won't have to pay any taxes. But definitely a 401k that matches. Now, the 401k that does not match, I would say work with a financial advisor to get a different type of plan because the employer, when they're investing, is really not in your best interest, so it may not be in the best like mutual funds or they're just investing and giving you the bare minimum. But if they're matching, then that's good. Yeah.
Yeah, but my wife had, let me talk about it. She had thousands of dollars in the bank. I mean, before, just sitting there.
Yeah.
Somebody else, oh man, somebody else making money, lots of money, off of her money. So I said, just take the money, let's go buy a house. We could have bought a house, rent it out, make our own money.
Yeah.
Invest our own money.
Definitely.
So when we think that we got money laid out and it's okay, what is it? I don't think nobody said anybody ain't working the bank. Banks are evil.
Yeah, definitely. Banks and insurance companies. Banks and insurance companies. Yeah. But yeah, definitely investing, like you said, investing in yourself, even with real estate. So it just depends on what your goals are. But real estate is one of the prime things that you want to have. And you can have a diverse portfolio, whether it's real estate, stock market, but real estate because it's going to appreciate over time. and you can always pass it on. And another thing about real estate, one thing that people don't know is you don't want to put real estate in your children's name while you're alive. It's best to allow them to inherit it through like a trust, because it makes the difference on taxes. Because if you put real estate in their name while you're alive, whatever you paid for that real estate, that's the same cost that transfers to them. So if it's 20 years later and it's appreciated hundreds of thousands of dollars, they're going to have to, if they decide to sell it, they would have to pay a lot of capital gain tax. Versus if they inherit it, and it's 20 years later, they inherit it at that value when you die. So if they sell it for that same price, there's no capital gain tax. In a trust? So a real estate planning attorney would help, but the main things to know about a trust is there are different kinds of trusts. So one is called a irrevocable trust. And what that means is that whatever assets you are putting into that trust, they no longer belong to you once they go into that trust. They belong to your beneficiaries. And the good thing about an irrevocable trust is because it provides you asset protection, of course. Like, for instance, with the IRS, if it's in an irrevocable trust, prior to the IRS putting a lien on your assets, so that would be a suggestion. Put it in an irrevocable trust prior to them putting a lien on it, because what will happen is if you don't pay the IRS debt, they can't come after those assets because they no longer belong to you, they belong to your beneficiaries. A revocable trust is where you have beneficiaries, but everything that you put into that trust still belongs to you. So they look at it as, even though you have that revocable trust, the assets, you have control over those assets. You can do with the assets what you want to do with them. So creditors and the IRS can still come after those assets. So like short term, kind of? Like a short-term investment? So you can still, you can choose. You can still put it in a money market or like an MMA or like a money market account with the bank, because it won't gain as much interest as in the stock markets, but it'll still gain more interest than in your bank saving account. Or like municipal bonds, things like that. Short term, where you can pull it out and you don't have to be a certain age to pull it out, you know what I mean? So short term municipal bonds or like an MMA. Anything else? All right, I'm gonna turn it over to Stephanie. Stephanie, right? Melissa, where I get Stephanie from? Why I thought you text me Stephanie. Melissa.
Thank you so much. Please give Miss Leona a hand. She did such an awesome job. Thank you so much on educating us tonight. We definitely appreciate it. Thank you again to Deacon Terrell for Terrell for even bringing this idea to us. Like I said earlier, we always want, thank you so much. Churches definitely get a bad stigma for always wanting to get, but we want to pour back in so that you guys are also able to get. Oh yeah, these are templates for budgeting. Please do. Randell will come around with these so that you can put out your budget that she talked about. Thank you so much. We do have, are there any more questions, comments, concerns for Miss Leona before she leaves us? Yes, we appreciate you so much. Thank you. We do have some hors d'oeuvres in the back, heavy hors d'oeuvres, because I know you guys might be hungry. We knew tonight might be a little bit later than normal Bible study. So I'm turn it into the hands of Pastor to bless the food and close us out.
Amen. Let's give our speaker another hand. Did anybody learn anything? Amen, amen. How many of you going to invest in my idea? I got application. Y'all got my application? Listen. We are God's people.